can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day.
Hey everybody, this is a different type of episode. Yes, you're on the Comic Book Bears feed right now, but it's a brand new show featuring myself, Bill Zanowitz, and
Tito Gutierrez.
And we are welcoming you to the first episode, or what really is kind of like a zero pilot episode of the Tito and Bill Goodtime Hour.
Goodtime Hour.
Yeah, we'll have a theme song.
Mm-hmm.
We live for that garbage stuff. Long story short, Tito and I have been friends for a number of years.
Yes.
How many years at this point is this, including live journals?
Okay.
Like 10?
I want to say probably around then. When did I started doing the? We met. You entered my radar through Live Journal.
Right.
So my Live Journal years was 2007, 2008, 2009.
Okay.
Around then. Yeah.
Okay, I think I was like 2008. I think that's when I came on.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Came on the live journal scene.
Remember that?
Yeah, you still do it though, right?
You know what? I haven't updated it in about 3-4 months, but there's just there you go. I just like to go in there and just to change the water, make sure
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just make sure the plants get some nutrients.
Yeah, that the hamster has enough water and
right.
just to clean out the cage every now and then. You know?
Yeah, I don't think I've been on there in at least 4 years. I've done recon on there. So anyway, I'm going to introduce myself here. My name is Bill Zanowitz. If you're listening through the Comic Book Bears feed, you might know me as one of the co-hosts and founders of the Comic Book Bears podcast. I also co-host another comic book-based podcast called the Thundercast, which is around the Thunder Agents Silver Age comic from the 1960s. And this show is going to give me an opportunity to not talk comics, which is going to be a big relief. And again, I'm here with my internet brother Tito. And Tito, tell people about yourself.
Okay, I am dude from Southern California, born in downtown LA, raised in the San Fernando Valley. Yes, I am a Valley boy. I live in North Orange County now, which is right down the street from Disneyland, and I am a Chihuahua enthusiast. I have 2 little Chihuahuas. I play guitar in a rock band called Bear Fight. We're playing tonight, by the way. Come down and see us if you have a flux capacitor. And I love rock and roll. I love Star Wars. I love all sorts of groovy things. I love it all. It's all great.
I guess I should fill in some biographical detail there. I am from New Jersey, born in the northern part, currently live in the central part. I am a licensed attorney, but not in practice right now. I'm working in anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing consulting.
How about divorce?
No, not divorce. I know you need
but
that's another thing. Tito's ready to start dating.
I am single and I am ready to mingle.
He is ready to start dating. He has had his little dust settle period, and you're gonna get a boyfriend out of the show.
I'm still, the dust has settled. The whole what does this all mean thing is kind of like it's subsiding now, and now I want to cuddle.
Oh. But as Tito mentioned, I'm also a big fan of music, a big fan of most pop culture. And if we do check out the page for the Goodtime Hour, you will see we are going to flood it with some of the most kitschy stuff you can imagine that we have a genuine love for. I mean, it's genuine.
Exactly. No, we're not snickering. No, this is genuine love. This is look
cool
at how stupid this is. No, this is actually really good.
I think a good way to let people get to know the pop culture side of ourselves is to go through some favorites. And we're going to keep this very loose. But before we do that, we probably should give some background about the title Goodtime Hour. Because this is us.
It's a takeoff on the / tribute to the Glenn Campbell Goodtime Hour. And you could look it up. It was his variety show, late 60s, early 70s, and it was just it was wonderful. It was music for the sake of music, entertainment for the sake of entertainment, and just everything that Bill and I just love and adore.
In a nice little nutshell, so that's what we're hoping that we can provide for you as well. So, all right, where do you start? Favorite song? You go
Favorite
ahead,
song.
sir. Yeah.
Okay, I will go first. Okay,
Yeah.
well, my favorite songs, I'll just give you like my three favorite songs. Number one is "The Do Run Run" by the Crystals. That song is just everything. The lyrics, the production, everything about that. It just sounds just like a party. And the way Phil Spector describes it is when he first heard it coming out of the monitors in the studio, he said, that's pure gold coming out of there. And I just think that song is everything. Whenever I play it, I just I levitate every time I hear that. And it never gets old. I can play that song over and over again, and I'm still trying to dissect everything that's going on in the background, the claps, the bells, the drums, the everything. And legend has it that Cher is one of the background singers, so I'm trying to think. I always try to listen for a young Cher's voice. My other favorite song is "I'll Be Your Mirror" by the Velvet Underground, because it's just beautiful. It's perfect. And there you go. And then the third one, oh my, it just changes every week, it seems. Right now, my third favorite song has to be "Little Bird" by the Beach Boys. It was a Dennis Wilson song, and that's another song that I just constantly go back to and just love the kind of laziness and Denny's voice on that one, and later Dennis Wilson voice, just that raspy, lazy, easy kind of this. You want to take care of that voice, and it's just beautiful. I wish he would have stuck around. So those are my top three right now.
Okay.
How about you?
For my top three, my number three pick is the most recent pick in this little group, and that's a song by Stereophonics called "A Thousand Trees." If you want to give a very crass description of Stereophonics at that point in their career, think Rod Stewart fronting Oasis. Which I don't think is bad. It gives you some idea. As a lyricist, at least on the first two albums, the frontman of Stereophonics, Kelly Jones, was really at the top of the game there. Yeah. Kind of trailed after the first two albums, where their lyrics are pretty pedestrian, but there's something about the marriage of really basic rock to some really thoughtful lyrics about, in the first album, life in a small town. Second, life exploring the world after living in a small town. So maybe that's, the world experience kind of affected how he attacked lyrics. But that would be my number three.
And also back on Rod, people have this image of Rod Stewart, but I think to this day he's one of my favorite storytellers ever. I mean, he can paint a hell of a picture with words and shake his booty at the same time. So continue. But,
and also I think that's a very specific science where you are a storyteller, though they're not your lyrics, generally. Yeah. That's a very, very tough science to master, and he's done that.
Yeah.
I mean, think of, some songs, again, most that he didn't write. And he just puts that stuff across so well, like, First Cut is the Deepest or whatever.
You believe it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then my second song, my number two slot, is Getting Better by the Beatles. Oh God, I thought we were not going to have to edit, but I can leave it a bleh. Getting Better by the Beatles is a track off of Sgt. Pepper, and for me, it's what getting better all the time. For me, that's what everything that makes the Beatles wonderful in one song. You just have McCartney's pop sensibility at the top of its game. Then you have Lennon's cynicism coming in with "Can't Get No Worse." It's just a perfect little gem. For me, if somebody was saying what did the Beatles sound like, that would be the song I gave over.
Wow.
Not their most well-known song, but certainly for me the one that worked the best.
I know it, but I never really have, and must have listened to it hundreds and thousands of times in my lifetime, but never really thought of it in your terms.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
And that's one thing I love talking to you about music, because we are always discovering new things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking a few months back, we were both familiar with Lee Hazelwood.
Yes.
And a big favorite is one of his duets with Nancy Sinatra, "Some Velvet Morning," for both of us.
Yes.
Neither of us knew the Vanilla Fudge version.
No.
And it was like this amazing discovery that
and that just hit me like a ton of bricks, where I just had to tell everybody, I'm like, look at this. And then when I discover something that awesome like that Vanilla Fudge, "Some Velvet Morning," the first person I go to is my brother. I'm like, just stop what you're doing and look at this. And then, basically my brother is the straight version of me, born 18 months later. But we're on the same wavelength musically and a lot of stuff, Right. But it blew his mind also, and we just listened to it over and over again. But
I just
that was a mind blower.
There's still stuff we're discovering, even though we're, I think a little bit cynical about music and collecting, maybe a little bit, but there's still some joy that we can.
Well, dude, I just started listening to Gary Puckett and the Union Gap about like 2 weeks ago. I mean, I obviously knew who he was and a couple of his hits, but I'm like, oh my god, this is so great! Oh my. Did you try this? Eat this! Oh my gosh!
All right, well, my number one record of all time, my favorite single of all time, is "I Can See Clearly Now" by Johnny Nash.
Awesome.
This is something that follows me from childhood. This record came out in 1972. I think it was a hit maybe a little later. It's saying it was released in June 72, but I seem to remember it later as a little kid. Like, my memories kind of start around the fall of 73. And for some reason in my head, it was like a current song then. I'm not exactly sure, but we don't have time to check all the charts with that.
Hold on.
It is one of those. Oh, go ahead. I have to say, it is one of those records that I cannot listen to and not feel a little bit better after listening to, because, no matter what my circumstances are, it may have been a terrible day. There may have been something really bad go down with somebody close to me. And if I listen to that song, at least for that 2 minutes and 45 seconds, it transports me to a little more optimistic place, no matter what the circumstance. So
I definitely understand, and I understand with that song too, because that song first entered my radar when I was maybe about 8 or 9 years old. They used to, during afternoon cartoons, there was a PSA for, I guess, a hospital or a school for blind children, and that was the song, and it was just blind kids playing and learning, and it just, oh my god, even just thinking about it, I get choked up, even back then, my cynical 8-year-old, I hate everything and everything is stupid self thought that was like, that's great, man, and that song is just perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I always think about that.
For me, growing up on the East Coast and you on the West Coast, I'm sure we have very different local TV experiences. So that might be a lot of fun once we get into it. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. Well, you throw another favorite at me, and we'll go
favorite
from there.
At you. Let's take this. How about the best concert you've ever been to in your entire life? What are like your three that stand out the most?
I'd have to really look closely at the list to figure out three, but I can say one right off the bat. And that was Elvis Costello and the Attractions at the Tower Theater in Philadelphia in October of 1986.
Oh my gosh.
For this tour, a lot of people know it from the spinning wheel, where he would bring a spinning wheel out and do songs. But it was actually like three different formats that were in rotation on that tour. He would be playing the more country-oriented stuff with the Confederates, basing the set list around the King of America album. He also had solo nights, and he also had nights that were with the Attractions, who were on their last legs as a band at that point.
Wow.
I mean, there was a lot of tension there. And I hit an Attractions night the night that I went, which was, just to give some perspective, in 86, Costello released 2 albums, King of America and Blood and Chocolate. And so I have a Blood and Chocolate dominated night, the night that I saw him in the Tower Theater in Philly. While I was in Philly, I went to the University of Delaware for undergrad, so that was the closest market for concerts. And as I said, this is a band that there's like ridiculous tensions. They eventually broke up 2 months later, and there weren't any Attraction shows until 1994, and it was palpable. You can feel it. It wasn't just like one or two guys not liking each other. It was like 4 people not liking each other. But when you have nights like that, sometimes it's just the propulsion and the sense of dynamics that's on stage is just astonishing. And that's the kind of night I had. I mean, songs I had heard 100 times before, Pump It Up Again or something, and it was just electric. And then the choice of covers was amazing. He did ABBA's Knowing Me, Knowing You, and introduced it as an old Swedish folk song, and Cold Turkey, Lennon's Cold Turkey.
Oh my God.
And it was just, it was like 12 minutes long. There's not a lot to that song, and it just kept going. And I always go back to that night. If I pick a favorite concert of all time. There have been some other moments with concerts that I can think of, individual songs that just knocked me out.
Yeah.
I can think of Patti Smith one time where she has a song about Kurt Cobain called About a Boy. And when I saw her at this show, she just went into this spoken word, and it was like completely off the cuff, and just delving into the moment where he shot himself, and just
Oh
these
my God.
heartbreaking observations that she's providing. Like, and the one line that just always stuck with me: "Why couldn't you think of the smile on your child's face?"
Oh my God, stop.
Yeah,
Oh
I know.
wow.
I'm just stopping there, but I mean, that was just amazing. And
Yeah.
there were Belle and Sebastian one time with the Stars of Track and Field. I mean, not a tearjerker, but just everything live
Yeah.
performance should be. But if I have to pick one show that I could see again and again, night after night, it would be Costello and the Attractions in '86.
Wow.
Yeah. So how about you?
I do have a similar Patti Smith experience. I used to work in a record store. This is mid '90s, and the owner Al, I miss that fucker. He's still around though, but he was a huge Patti Smith fan, and
Uh-huh.
I obviously knew who she was, and I knew like her signature songs, but I was never really a fan. I kind of, in a way, resented her. I'm like, who is this woman trying to intellectualize rock and roll and blah 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 blah? And I just kind of rolled my, the poet studied rules of verse, but the ladies, Tito, rolled their eyes, and I rolled my eyes at her. So, Patti Smith was played at a place called the Hollywood Athletic Club, which was exactly what it sounded like. It was an old athletic club, and then built in the maybe 20s, I guess. And they used to have concerts in the basketball courts, and Patti Smith played. So then, to be a nice employee to my friend slash boss, I got him tickets. And it was amazing. She converted me right then and there. I
Hmm.
became a believer, and she opened with "Here It Come." Why am I blanking on her big hit? Because the Night, and then
Hmm.
she went into Paint It Black, and Hank Williams, I'm so lonesome I can cry. I'm like, okay, I get it. It was like a switch just turned on,
Yeah.
and I just and I just loved her ever since. But I always say this as my number one favorite show. It was has to be Kraftwerk at the Palladium in Hollywood, June of 1998.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I've been to the Palladium. I grew up at the Palladium. As a teenager, I've seen everybody at the Palladium, from Sepultura to Neil Young and everyone in between. Um, and the Palladium is known for its crappy sound. The acoustics are notoriously awful, but the way it was set up, there were speakers all over the place. You had this surround sound, quadraphonic sound, whatever. And I was really into Kraftwerk that year. I've always known who they were, but I had a music teacher at community college. I was taking this computer music class, and in the studio there was just a leftover Kraftwerk record. It was the Man Machine,
Hmm.
and he said, "Oh, do you want that record?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And it changed my life. I became a Kraftwerk fan ever since. And it's like, at that point, I thought I would never see them, but they ended up doing that show, and it was just, oh my gosh, it was Tron, it was everything. It was everything. And then also with the show, whenever I say what's your favorite show, I put in everything into consideration: the people that I was with, the circumstances, the events leading up to the show and after the show. And that whole day, that whole night was just perfect, because all of our friends were still friends. That old group of people were still friends, and we danced our asses off that night. And then the party continued back at my place. And this was back when I still lived at home in Whittier, and my parents had this humongoid pool. So it became like this Kraftwerk pool party afterwards, and it was just wonderful. It was kind of like the last hurrah of my, I don't know, early 20s, like, or mid 20s, before everything that we did, it seemed like nothing had a consequence, and then,
Hmm.
yeah, it was just before everything. It was before I was handed a bill for all that stuff. But it was just a magic night, and it always stands out as just, oh my gosh, just, yeah, it was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Did you see Kraftwerk's shows over the last 2 years, the 3D shows?
uh
Oh.
I had tickets, but a week prior to maybe 2 weeks prior to that show, I had tickets for the Man Machine show. 2 weeks prior to that show, my husband at the time says that he was tired and he didn't want to do. Well, basically, I was dumped.
Oh.
Yeah, so I wasn't up to going to concerts then.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'd just broken up with Danny right then, so I was just like, I don't
Yeah.
care. But yeah, I heard they
Okay.
were great.
And then moving away from that, but keeping it with Kraftwerk, did you ever see a documentary called Kraftwerk and the Electronic Revolution?
I have not.
Okay, if you can seek this out, there's
Mm.
this British video imprint. It's been Chrome Dreams. It's had a couple of different names, and they're kind of these like quickie documentaries of
Mm-hmm.
what's like some of the tags, like in their own words or that kind of stuff, where there'd be like effectively unofficial documentaries. But sometimes they use some really good footage, and this one was a little bit more advanced than that one. It's about almost 2.5 hours long,
Wow.
and it doesn't just focus on Kraftwerk but other acts. And the one that knocked me,
Tangerine Dream or anything?
Tangerine Dream, Amandul, a lot of the
Mm.
other krautrock acts, and the one that really knocked me out from watching that was Klaus Schulze,
Oh, uh-huh.
and he has an album Irrlicht that I
Mm-hmm.
never heard of this before. And my best comparison is if Kraftwerk is Star Wars, Klaus
Mm.
Schulze's solo work, especially Ehrlich, is Alien. I mean, it's just like
Wow.
he was a former member of Tangerine Dream,
Yeah.
left, I think even before their peak, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just this. It really is like some of the scariest electronic music you ever hear.
Oh,
But
awesome.
at the same time, it's just like it's scary, but it's like beautiful soundscapes at the same time, like
Oh, I should
Alien,
check
you
that
know,
out. Yeah.
that kind of thing.
No,
So
I mentioned him earlier, my former boss at the record store, Al, he was really into him. And again, he opened up a lot of doors for my brother and I. A lot of the Italian well, the record store I used to work at, we specialized in progressive rock, Disney, and bootlegs. But he was that was the Tangerine Dream and all that stuff. There's so many things that I still have yet to get to. I mean, trust me, we covered a lot of ground with the stuff that he introduced us or exposed us to, but there's still certain things that we need to get to, and that was one of them. So I will
yeah,
definitely make a note of that.
awesome. And I
Almost
think
20 years after I worked there, but still,
yeah,
I'm still, yeah.
and from what I understand, that guy's still at it. He's still doing ambient type of
Wow.
things. Yeah. So, yeah, tangents. You're gonna get them, folks. Away we go. All right, I'm gonna throw a favorite at you. Who is your favorite actor or actress?
My favorite actress is Edith Massey. I mean, I always say that. I just love the innocence and the naivety of her. Is that even a word? Of her work in on all those John Waters films. It's endearing, and it's when she's being mean, it's endearing. When she's being endearing, you just want to hug her, and I love it. I love it. From Queen Carlotta in Desperate Living to Cuddles in Polyester. I love watching that bad acting and her lisping and just and just she's so repulsive looking, but you still want to hug her and hang out with her. So, and also this is very cliche. I know this is on a lot of people's list, but Johnny Depp. I
Okay.
I I just adore him. And prior to Ed Wood, I just thought he was just this a pretty boy, whatever. But then when I saw Ed Wood, I'm like, wait a minute. It was the first time that I forgot that I was looking at watching Johnny Depp, and I got really involved in his characters. And he when he's good, he's good, and when he's doing Keith Richards, it's okay. That's cute too. Yeah.
I have to say the first time I was really impressed with him was What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought he was really, really effective as a really offbeat leading man in a sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
well, my favorite actor is the quintessential leading man,
Of course. I know
and
what you're
that
gonna
is,
say.
here we go,
Hmm.
born January 18th, 1904, as
Wow.
Archibald Alexander Leach. My pick is Cary Grant.
Cary
Uh,
Grant.
yeah, I love actors who make it look easy.
Hmm.
They can be very different, whether it's Gene Hackman or Spencer Tracy. And I think Cary Grant does that more effectively than anybody else.
Wow.
And out of the 72 films he's made, I've seen 66.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. When he was a Paramount contract player early on in his career, some of those movies are really hard to find
Wow.
in like an even watchable print. So,
Oh
um,
my gosh.
yeah, thank God for DVD because there's some movies
Exactly.
like Merrily We Go to Hell and Devil in the Deep and Hot Saturday. There's no way I ever would have seen some of those without the
Yeah.
benefit of DVD reissue program. So that's my favorite. And if you go to my home, you'll see a lot of Cary Grant stuff on the walls.
Yes, I see a
lot
lot
of lobby cards.
a lot of Cary Grant.
It's interesting though with Cary Grant with the Flintstones. That was kind of unofficial, but that really was Tony Curtis and it really was Anne Margaret.
Yeah.
When they had those cameos and tying it to rock and roll, how can you not mention the Beau Brummel Stones?
The Beau Brummel Stones, yeah. Actually, my first introduction to them was Village of the Giants.
Yeah.
Elvira played that. It was the Burt I. Gordon film starring Beau Bridges and Tommy Kirk and Richie Cunningham, Ron Howard, a young Ron Howard. So. And the first time I ever heard of the Beau Brummels, and then I was at a record store and I saw one of their albums, like, oh my God, this is a real band.
Yeah. So you had Elvira as a local host?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah. Changed everything, yeah.
Yeah.
It was on Sunday. She was on LA, and this was in the all throughout the 80s, Sunday afternoons. Mm-hmm. So, and it was hilarious. My dad would say, you just like her because she's got big boobs. I'm like, well, they're nice. I was breastfed, but she's hilarious, and I love these movies.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, but that was the first time I saw it, and I just fell in love with it. And just one thing that kind of shaped who I am and how I see the world. Elvira is one of those people in the movies that she showed. Also, is one of those. That's what's it's responsible for, partially responsible for the way I am right now and how I see things.
That certain kind of lens.
Yes.
The Tito lens.
She did play this. By the time I was like 10 or 11 years old, I've seen all the Nightmare on Elm Streets and Friday the 13th, but really the first movie to really disturb me, even The Exorcist, but the first movie to disturb me was a movie that Elvira played called The Baby, which was about a woman and her teenage daughters who take care of their brother who's in his 20s, and they treat him like a baby. He's an adult baby in a he has a playpen and doesn't talk. He crawls and feeds out of a bottle, and it was the most disturbing thing I've ever seen. And I saw it maybe like 20, 30 years later, and it still just messed me up.
Oh.
So yeah, check that out.
Okay, yeah, the movie that I have to say, the first movie that really creeped me out was a movie called Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
Oh my gosh.
And it's one of those movies where there's nothing that graphic, especially by today's standards.
Yeah.
And there's just this tone to the film that it's that whole 70s washed out kind of almost Super 8 look that just I mean, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre never did that for me because it was the action was so out of this world. But with this movie where there's effectively an extended stalking that goes on through. That's something you really could latch onto. I mean, to me, like All the President's Men is far scarier than than Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's something about the 70s and the camera filters they use and the film stock they use that it's just like, even if it's a comedy, like some of them are just creepy looking.
Even just washed out colors, and just for me it's the cars. I just think those big huge gas guzzling cars, to this day they still scare the shit out of me, and I think it's because it's of those those movies or films of that genre. I see a big Malibu classic and I run.
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of like recent films, and the one that I felt, though it doesn't have the look, it had the tempo of that, right, was Zodiac.
Oh,
that just, because really when I got out of that movie, I thought I was going to see Cars from 1982 when the film ended. I really thought that's what I was going to see because it had me, it had me going. Yeah.
Tell people about your interest of like the Zodiac killer and
Okay. There are certain serial killings. I don't want to sound like the creepiest person here, but there are, and I don't even want to say it's serial killings, but there are certain horrible events that have happened in the course of global history that I have a strange fascination with. One is Jonestown. And I think this is all tied into the Bay Area for some reason. Because
Yep.
if you want creepiness, you go to San Francisco in the 70s. I mean, that's, you can take your Mansons, but the progeny of that is like even 10 times weirder. But
Anton
also,
LaVey, that was his home base.
yeah. But there's something about the Zodiac killings because they were unsolved, because there is a game element to it with the ciphers, and it's just something about it always attracted me to the narrative, and that it hasn't really ended. That there are still suspects, and sometimes valid suspects come up, and the chances that we'll ever know who the Zodiac is about as likely as knowing who Jack the Ripper is.
Or who committed the Black Dahlia murders.
Yeah, I mean, Black Dahlia, that you want a savage murder, that's whoa.
Dude, yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's not for the faint of heart. I mean, at least with Zodiac, you're talking about stab wounds and the shots at the head.
Yeah, just some Jigsaw, Cannibal Corpse stuff going on over here.
But I also love that time period too, though. The L.A. in the 40s. So there's attractiveness there with the Black Dahlia, and anything James Ellroy, I go nuts over. And that's a really amazing book to read. Is My Dark Places. Did you ever read that? It's an autobiographical work. In real life, his mother died when he was murdered when he was, I think, 8 years old.
Oh my gosh!
And killer was never caught. And look at what he's based his career around. Yeah. So wow, we took a dark turn there.
Well, speaking of killers, there's actually one literally on the loose in my neighborhood. When I got home, the cops say, "Go into your house, lock the door." And I was welcomed by police cars all over my street and helicopters. And so as I'm speaking to you guys now, maybe there's a killer outside my house. I don't know yet, but
don't go out the door.
But we digress.
Yeah, well, killer in the cul-de-sac.
Yes.
Wow.
Ooh. That's the name of the next Bear Fight song. It'll be a concept album.
Yeah, take notes of everything that's going on today. So.
Absolutely, yeah.
Keep your chihuahuas. Make
My
sure they don't
chihuahua.
set them off. Yeah.
Oh, dude, they're fearless. They will take anyone on. So.
All right, why don't you throw a fave at me?
Favorite album.
Favorite album. It's a tie. And this is a tie that's gone on almost 30 years. I go back and forth between the two, and they're both very similar albums in a sense. One I actually mentioned earlier, King of America by Elvis Costello, or technically the Costello Show, and All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes by Pete Townshend. They're both men in their 30s. Their wilder times are ending. And these are very reflective albums, but at the same token, and both of them had gone through a lot personally at that time. A near divorce and a divorce, drug issues, drinking issues. As somber as some of the songs are, there's a sense of optimism in the end.
Yeah.
And I've always gone back and forth. I've never been able to say one's better than the other. So I have a tie for two at favorite album, and those are the two.
Wow, drug issues, divorce, pending divorces. That means I have a masterpiece in me somewhere. So
and it's called Killer in the Cul-de-Sac. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
My number one favorite album, and it's been this way for about 20 years. It's Peace of Mind by Iron Maiden. I first shoplifted that album when I was in the 9th grade. I stole the tape from the warehouse in Canoga Park, and at that point, we were not allowed to listen to heavy metal or punk. It was just all bad. It was the devil's music. And of course that made it more appealing to my brother and I. So so if my mom doesn't want us to listen to that, then it's obviously really good. And my mom has great taste in music. You'll find that out later in later episodes. But I brought that home. I snatched it and then put it on the tape deck, and it was the first Maiden album I ever heard. And prior to that, I just thought that Iron Maiden was just blah, blah, blah noise and everything, devil. But it was actual songs, and there was textures to this, and there were stories that were kind of loosely based on the album cover. And the album cover, you've probably seen it. It's Eddie in a straitjacket in a padded room, and there was lights flashing on him, and for some reason there's a levitating hand with the key on the back cover, and I would just get lost in that album, and it showed me that this band and this genre of music, it's more than just a shock value. That this is a legitimate art form, and I still play it today, and still get a lot out of it, and I love it. I get lost in it every time. And a lot of people like to say that Number of the Beast or Power Slave, but for me it's Peace of Mind, especially side 2 with the 10-minute song To Tame a Land, which is it's basically them telling the story of Dune, and that and also Maiden were one of those bands that inspired me to read books in the first place, like Stranger in a Strange Land, Dune, H.P. Lovecraft, and it all started with that record. And then they're another one of those bands that introduced me to so many other bands, Thin Lizzy, UFO, Montrose, all that stuff. So it's still a go-to album, and I still get inspired every time I listen to it. And probably a close second, and it's remained this way forever too, is Forever Changes, Love. And it's just, I think it is the quintessential Los Angeles album. First of all, the record is beautiful. Yeah. And it's I think it is the perfect representation of Los Angeles, where the music is very beautiful, the songs, the melodies are beautiful, but the lyrics are very dark and bleak, and but there is some hope in there. And I still think Los Angeles is like that, where people come here thinking that it's with a preconceived notion of what it is. And of course, LA is glamorous. There's all sorts of glitz and glamour, and so I work in television, and I see stars every day. But it's also it's just as working class as Detroit, But and there's if you can, your dreams can come true, and they can be taken away in a second. And I think that there's that bleakness in that record, but and hope at the same time, which I love. And my gosh, another one of those records where I can just get lost in. But
Did you ever see Love?
Yes, I did. The first time I was going to go see Arthur Lee was probably in the mid '90s at the Coconut Teaser. I had just turned 21, and that was going to be my first 21 and over show. And Arthur Lee was playing there, but when we got there, the show was canceled because he was arrested that day. Because he was fired, he shot guns in his apartment or some crap like that. So that was when so then we went to his reunion show when he got out of prison, which were amazing. Yeah. And
I understand that there were many bad nights with
I went one of those nights
version of Love. I saw a good night the one time I saw, which was on the double bill with the Zombies on that tour. And all the stars were in alignment. And this was just I forget the guy's name, Johnny Eccles, is that his name?
Yes,
the original Love guitars. This was one of his first shows back with him, and because the backing band Baby Lemonade were just amazing. They were like if you can't get Brian Wilson's band, get that.
Those are the next guys. Yeah. And I think that was one reason why I kept seeing Arthur Lee and Love, because that lineup, because they were just so amazing. The same reason why I see Brian Wilson as much as I did, because that band is they're out of this world.
Yeah.
But I went to the Forever Changes show, which with the complete string section and horn section, and it was one of those shows where I waited my entire life for, and I didn't think that this would ever happen ever, and it was just, oh gosh, it was a disaster. I mean, Arthur Lee was on another planet, and but I did get to pee next to Paul Stanley that night, so that was it was great. Yeah, Paul Stanley was there, and I saw him like, wow, you like good music, that's awesome. And then I peed next to him, and it was great. So that was the best thing that happened about that. Yeah. So.
Who's your most surprising sighting at a concert? I have one. I think it's going to top everything.
One that always sticks out. It was April of 1998. It was Cheap Trick at the Roxy, and it was the 20th anniversary of the Live at Budokan show to the day. So they did the whole set at the Roxy, and Rick Nielsen kept calling out people in the audience. He called out, first was, we have a friend of ours tonight. There's Mr. Brian Setzer. And he stood up and waved at everybody. And I was like, oh, awesome. And then a couple songs later, one of our really good friends, part of the Cheap Trick family, Mr. Ace Frehley. And we're like, holy shoot, oh my gosh, Ace Frehley. And then towards the end of the night, it was like, I can't leave without saying hello to one of my best friends, Mr. Scott Hamilton, Olympic ice skater, gold medalist Scott, and he was standing right behind me the whole time, and he's like, the spotlight was on him, he's like, hello? He had this nervous wave and everything, and he got the biggest reaction out of everybody that night.
Wow. I think you got me beat, because mine was Peter Boyle at Garbage.
Wow.
So we're like, why in hell is Peter Boyle at Garbage? But I guess he was taking daughters or granddaughters or something.
Wow.
But we're looking up at it was at Roseland Ballroom, and
Mm-hmm.
the VIP section, and I was up there once. I was actually up there once for Paul Weller, and it
Mm-hmm.
was pretty cool being a VIP in that section, but
Oh, wow.
that was only because they screwed up and they were nice. It wasn't because I was the VIP. We were looking at the VIP section because you can't not at Roseland the way it was set up. And
Mm-hmm.
first we saw Rosie O'Donnell, and that's not too surprising, I don't think.
Yeah.
Rosie Senior. But then Peter Boyle and people come walking in
Wow.
like, yeah, it's really him. So.
I saw Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman at a Hole concert in '94. That was pretty wild. But the wildest one, I think I
Yeah.
told you the story before. It was Prince at a Bjork concert at
Yeah,
the
you told me
Hollywood
that. Yeah.
Palladium. Now, this was back when one of our best friends worked at Golden Voice, which is the concert promoter company, and she promoted shows, and we didn't. She put us on the list for everything, even if we didn't like it. She just goes, just dress up really nice. We need bodies there. So she put us on the list for Bjork. We got dressed up all snazzy that night, and then so we're there watching the show. Bjork is dressed up like a hawk and flying up and down the stage. It was great, and Gwen Stefani was there, and that's not uncommon because we saw her everywhere.
Oh,
And
yeah, I've heard she like at least up until like the mid 2000s, she would be like almost everything.
Oh,
They
I've
went
seen her
through.
at the Jesus Lizard. I've seen her at
Yeah,
No Effects. I've seen her shopping, and she was approachable back then. This
yeah.
is
For
pre-Blake
for us
Shelton.
is Iggy Pop.
Oh,
Iggy is at
wow.
a ton of shows, and bands
Mm,
you never think he would be at, like
mm,
Marion, and
wow.
Penfolds 5, like on their first album. New York, it is not uncommon to see Iggy Pop at a show
Wow.
at all. I mean, he can go
Remind me to
around.
tell you my Iggy Pop story in a later episode.
Okay.
So we're sitting at a table, and on the table it's Buzz from the Melvins with Adam Jones from Tool, and they're seen everywhere. They're best. I've seen them everywhere also.
Yeah.
And also on our table was Katie Lang and her girlfriend at the time.
Uh-huh.
And my sister struck up a conversation with Katie Lang. I'm like, hard to leave her alone. But she was very nice and very gracious. So halfway through the show, there's all these goons with their suits and earpieces and little flashlights flashing lights on everybody, telling everybody to go. This one big dude just, okay, you three can stay, but you all got to go. And by all of them, Katie Lang and the Melvins had to go, but they let us stay for some reason. And then I was wearing like this this purple glitter shirt that I got at Hot Top, well, not Hot Top, Monkeys to Go, which was like the Hot Topic before Hot Topic,
Okay.
and the stretch denim pants with studs down the side. It was from Lip Service, which was like the glam rock store
Oh
on
my
Melrose.
God, that must
So
have been
then,
a sight.
and then my brother had this matching kind of cowboy outfit, almost like a knockoff nudie suit, and my sister was wearing some gold lame kind of trash bag top and these tight jeans, whatever. But hey, stop doing that. My dog's about to poo. So anyway, so then they clear everybody out, and then we see and then we were overcome with this smell of coconuts. Like, we smell coconuts. Like, what the hell? What is that smell? What is that smell? And then we see all this entourage of people and bodyguards like looking around, and then we see little Prince, and he looked like a Crown Royal bottle. He had this little purple outfit with these little gold tassels on it, and he was with this huge Amazonian woman, and he was sitting on her lap. And he wasn't looking at the concert. He was looking at the VIP section. And then every few moments, he would kind of like raise his finger in the air, whisper in this dude's ear, and the dude would like summon people. Like, he would summon Gwen Stefani, and then he summoned Katie Lang. It was like, we want to talk to Prince. So that was one of the most weirdest, most bizarrest concert experiences ever, because you see Bjork dressed up like a hawk in the string section, and Katie Lang on one side and the Melvins over here, and then Prince smelling like coconut summoning people, and me dressed up like a pimp, and my brother dressed up like a gay cowboy, and but yes.
I'm sure if we went through our concert experiences, volumes of stuff, because we both still go a lot.
Oh my gosh, constantly. Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen anybody check into the Hollywood Bowl more than you. I mean,
That's my
that is
second
just
home.
amazing. Yeah.
That is
We're
my
losing.
second home.
We're losing my second home. Used to be the Brendan Byrne Arena. Different names were the Meadowlands Arena, Continental Airlines Arena. Right now, it's the IDOT Center. Recently built a new arena pretty close by in Newark called the Prudential. They call it the Rock. Ugh. It's okay. In terms of arenas, it's okay. I much prefer the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Oh my God,
Yeah.
the Barclays Center in Brooklyn had the whitest concert ever for New Year's Eve.
What was it? Was it Fish or was it
Jimmy
Jimmy Buffett?
Buffett with
Jimmy
Huey Lewis in
Buffet.
the News opening. I don't think you can get a whiter show than that. You know,
Huey Lewis, he needs to reform his first band, Clover. That would be kind of cool, but wow, that's pretty white.
yeah, that's pretty white there.
So next time you're there, say hi to my dad. He lives like blocks from that
Yeah,
place. So.
yeah, because that was a show we were supposed to go to, and this is a great
That's
story for us because this was the first concert we saw together. Was
Yes.
you were coming over for Morrissey and Cliff Richard at the
Yes.
Barclays Center. Morrissey
Mm-hmm.
canceled his tour, and then
Mm-hmm.
Cliff Richard ended up doing a show at the Gramercy
Mm-hmm.
Theater, and we had an amazing time at that show.
That was I was glad that Morrissey canceled that night
Yeah.
because we would not have gotten that show and that whole experience also. So, and we were the youngest ones there. So.
Yes. That was abundantly clear as you turned the corner and saw the line.
Like people had at least 20 years on us.
Yeah.
And we're no spring chickens either.
No. We are. You're in the early side of the 4-0s. I'm on the later side of the 4-0s.
Yes.
Full disclosure. Wow. I mean, there were walkers and shit. It was
that stands out as it's up there as far as one as my favorite concerts ever.
Barclays Center, it has a kind of warm feel. Now, the most recent show I saw with comps, and you can relate to this too, was Motley Crue. With our friends, I went with our friends Edwin and Andy, and I got Alice Cooper and you didn't.
I was so pissed,
Yeah.
man. And apparently what I found out is he wasn't even scheduled to do these last two shows. Because they played in Anaheim, which is close to where I live. But again, I got these tickets as comps through my work. But so I really wasn't up to going, but it was still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then I've been on like
on
a Motley Crue kick ever since then.
Yeah, I've never enjoyed that stuff. I pretty much detest hair metal. Can't even like it on a kitsch level. The only band that I liked, and to me they have a lot more akin with groups like Cheap Trick, is Enough's Enough.
Oh,
That's the only band that was kind of in that wheelhouse that I enjoyed. Yeah.
Growing up, I mean, I was a teenager in the late 80s and early 90s, and pre-Nirvana. First of all, I watched MTV even if I didn't like it. It was always on because my mother never let us leave the house, so we just watched MTV whether it was good or not. So I just remember hating Poison and Warrant and Cinderella and all of that. Hated it. I was all Sepultura, Napalm Death, Metallica, Slayer, Judas Priest, whatever. Fast forward to 1999, my friend said, "Hey, I have tickets to see Poison at the Universal Amphitheater." It was Poison, Dokken, Slaughter, and Cinderella.
I remember this. I remember your LiveJournal post about this.
Yes. And then I just said, you know what? It beats staying home doing nothing on a Saturday night, and I'll have a good laugh. Now, maybe 20, 30 minutes into the show, first of all, this is, me, I hate hair metal. I'm all Slayer. I'm still Slayer and Black Flag and all that good stuff back then. And about 30 minutes into the show, I realized, wait a minute, I know all the words to all these songs, to Poison. So wait a minute, why do I know these? And why am I having a great time? But another funny thing happened is we saw Cinderella's set, and they were amazing. I heard Mott the Hoople, I heard the Stones, and I heard, maybe some New York Dolls, and I realized, wait a minute, this band was legit the whole time, and there was some Bon Jovi there. But at the end of their set, I turned to my brother, and I told him, was it just me, or was that great? And he goes like, that was friggin' amazing. So I have warmed up to hair metal in since then.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have a comparable concert experience. And the one that I think is kind of shaking hands with that, in the 90s, there were so many bills that were like at least 3 bands.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like national tours that were 3 or 4 bands all the time. And this was, I don't want to sound like Bear Celebrities here, but this were comps, because we're fans of music, and I know you're in a different situation because of your work, but, at various points we've had friends that work in the industry.
Yeah, and they know what we like. And they know
they
what we'll enjoy.
At us every once in a while.
Yeah.
So I saw Sponge and Ned's Atomic Dustbin.
Wow.
and Letters to Cleo, and there was another like even lesser known band called Fig Dish. But it was
I
one of
remember
those.
them.
But it was one of those things where it was a Saturday night, and I just had a great time, a nice vibe. This was at Roseland too, actually,
Wow,
and
the
it
late
was
great
just
Roseland.
yeah, and it was just a great experience. You know, like none of these bands I have like a tremendous amount of affinity for, but I'm enjoying
Hmm.
myself. I'm just there to
Yeah.
have a good time, and it worked. That's the closest thing I had of like none of these bands that would
Cinderella.
register as '90s A-listers, but. Yeah, so Sponge, Ned's, and Letters to Cleo, you gave me a really good night.
Letters to
Yeah.
Cleo.
All right, well, we have covered movies to some degree. We've certainly covered music. And one thing that we've come to know about each other only in the last few months is we kind of have a penchant for toys every once in a while.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
I'm staring at my favorite ones right now.
what are your favorites? If
Right
you're
now,
staring
my
at them.
favorite
Yeah.
has to be, and it's a fairly recent acquisition, is my Sonny Bono Mego doll, 12-inch
Uh-huh.
doll, which I bought on eBay, and I've been eyeballing this for ever since I was a baby, it seemed.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh, I love it. I love it, and especially I love that. I'm gonna post pictures of this when we get our site up and down. But there's pictures of Sonny on the moon, Sonny as a cowboy, Sonny on this, in a trench coat, and then Sonny on in Times Square. So that's my
Yeah.
favorite. And then I have him next to not the Mego share, but the Mattel Barbie share as a half-breed share.
Oh,
So
God.
yes. So then a close second is my Brian Wilson doll that I got at
Yeah.
the Brian Wilson
Oh,
show in
that
in
kills me.
2007. Yeah.
One of those situations where I didn't buy. It was really expensive at the show too.
It
What I
was, yeah.
remember, I think it was like 50. Is that right?
Yeah, and then the
Yeah.
autograph one was 75.
Yeah, it was 50, and I thought, oh, I'll be able to find it online for the store.
No.
Nope, 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 nope. They all went.
And when I do see it, the unsigned ones are like, $200-300
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, I
But I
kicked
love it.
myself for
He's
that
still in
one.
the box. I'm not going to take him out. But yeah, I love Brian.
Yeah.
But whenever I go to sleep, they hop out of the box. Brian hops out of the box, Sonny and Cher, and so do my Misfits doll, and they have their own band right now. And then they start playing. But they haven't recorded anything but whenever I wake
Yeah.
up, they just kind of run back into their boxes. So. And I also have like the Devo figures, so they do all the synthesizers, but that's
Okay.
what they do when I'm asleep. They write music and they record, and so there you go.
Yeah. At the time we're recording this, this is just, I think, about, what are we at, 2 weeks since Star Wars came out? A week? 2 weeks?
Yes.
2 weeks,
Yes.
yeah. And let me tell you, it's been tough not going to the store and picking stuff up. I can't, because it's a rabbit hole I don't want to go down.
Mm-hmm.
When they revived Star Wars figures in the mid 90s, I stayed away. That was, the little Kenners, those were mine. That's my
Yeah.
time. But man, this is really tough because you get all giddy with this whole experience with this
Mm-hmm.
What I'm doing right now is I'm watching Clone Wars from the start. There's 121 episodes of it.
Good Lord.
Yeah, I'm at 38 or something already.
And again, that's a rabbit hole that I don't think I have. I mean, eventually I'll get there, but it's right now. I can't get involved in a show right now.
Yeah.
I don't have the time.
But when we were talking about what we would talk about on our first show, you had mentioned Megos.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for people who are unaware, Mego was a toy manufacturer from the late 60s to the very early 80s, and they were best known for their 8-inch action figures. The first ones that had any prominence were the world's greatest superheroes of the DC and Marvel comics predominantly. They later went into 12-inch figures, which is where Tito Sonny comes in. They also had the Captain and Tennille, which I'm sure
that's
you
why
would
I
want.
love them.
Yeah. So
that even had Christy McNichol and Laverne and Shirley, and I've always was fascinated as a little kid by like television tie-ins with toys more than anything.
So you had mentioned something along the lines of what Mego would you want that you don't have?
What I want will definitely be the Captain and Tennille.
Okay.
Yes.
As much as I want those, why don't you talk about? Because we were. I have to say, we were both very upset learning of the divorce.
Yeah,
legitimately.
It just and they were married for 39 years. Make it an even, make it an even 40, and I don't know. And once you're married that long, who cares,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was. and first of all, I've always loved Captain and Tennille, and I grew up in Chatsworth, and the Captain and Tennille lived. There was a reservoir that was our backyard, and then in the hills there was this huge mansion, and it belonged to the Captain and Tennille. So I would always look at them with my binoculars to see if I can see either the Captain or Tennille or Tony Tennille, but never did. But yeah, I love the show. I loved all those songs. It was great. But one reason why I want the Captain doll in particular is because the mold for the Captain's head is the same mold for the Paul Stanley Mego. So I just want to get that and paint the Captain's, paint a star on his head. So, but
yeah. If I had
those are the two that I want.
Yeah, if I had to pick Migos that I don't have, very recently the Figures Toys Company is one of these what they call Remigo companies.
Yes.
And they have the DC license, and they have put out these really good reproductions in some cases. Some not so hot, but some really good. So prior to last summer, the answer would have been the Teen Titans figures, which I had as a kid and still have 2 naked ones. Where I grew up, on the street I grew up, my friend Danny Weber had 2 younger sisters. So when you kind of outgrew the toys, I would give them stuff. And I just remember the 12-inch Lex Luthor was Barbie's father. And, so that's where some of my kind of retired. Yeah. Yeah. Now Barbie, Skipper's a few years younger than you. And it's like Lex Luthor, right? like
Barbie's much older.
Yeah. So up until last summer, it would have been the Teen Titans figures. I can't say that right now because I kind of have them at this point. But for me, in '78, they put out a line of Flash Gordon figures that were based on the original comic strip. This was well before the animated series, and I don't say well before, like a year before, and before the film. And that's amazing. The film had almost no merchandising. The 1980 film had almost no merchandising. So these were based.
Record, that's it.
Yeah. So these were based on the original Alex Raymond comic strip, and they are beautiful figures. There's Flash Gordon, Dale Arden, Ming, and
that guy.
Zarkov. Dr. Zarkov. Those would be the figures because the design of the costumes, the face sculpts were awesome, especially for something in '78. So
I saw something very, very cool. Earlier this week, at Disneyland, there's a couple of Star Wars-based gift shops. Well, there's this one where they have a life-size, maybe 5.5 foot, life-size statue of the Kenner Boba Fett action figure. But it's 5.5 feet, and it was just, oh my God, I wanted to take it home right there.
Were you of the age that you mailed away for Boba Fett?
The what?
Were you of the age that you mailed away for the Boba Fett figure?
No, but I do remember that. But no, I did not.
I was the early bird package and got the 4 figures in the mail, and then
you got the big cardboard stand up and
Yep. My Star Wars experience, and I explained this on our Star Wars Comic Book Bears episode, so if you want to get into detail, but just in case you're not listening to that one, because Tito's friends are gonna be listening to this one too, and they don't know me.
That's right. I'm not very well. I mean, I know what comics are, but I'm not very well versed. I just know that Superman doesn't like kryptonite, so there you go.
Right. Yeah, so we dedicated an episode to Star Wars and, kind of tied it in with the Star Wars of the comics. But for me, Star Wars from 77 to the summer of 80, it was so huge for me. But there was something weird about Empire. When Empire came out, and God knows I loved it, I saw it in the movie theaters 19 times.
Wow.
I mean, because there was like a week where I wasn't going to summer camp, and we saw it twice. So we saw it I would say 8 times in 1 week. It was just crazy that summer. But it was also kind of a coda for me. And I think, I'd hit the age where I was a little too old for the toys. So Empire's like a really big cutoff point for me.
Wow.
And my last figure was Yoda because he wasn't part of the original wave of Empire. They had that shit like the Bespin security guard. Some of the things they made figures of, man, that showed in some of itself.
I remember my brother and we sent away for, I guess with 4 proofs of purchase and $3, you sent away for 4 LOM, the bounty hunter.
Yeah,
so that was one thing I did.
That was past my time, yeah.
Yeah,
but Yoda was my last figure.
Really the starting point because I remember having the first wave, and this is by the time, because we didn't do the early bird stuff, but for us it was maybe 78, 79. I remember we got we've had the first Luke Skywalker and the really wonky looking Han Solo. But by the time Empire came out, we were, I was 7 years old. So that was just the perfect age for me. So that was when it was really full on,
Yeah. Well, we're coming up on the end of the hour. Actually, we've gone a little bit past it.
Oh my gosh.
But we're not lying. We're keeping it close to an hour.
No,
and this was a good time, wasn't it?
This was great. And seriously, I can talk all night, but there's a killer on the loose still. I wonder if it's still safe to go outside, and I have to get my stage outfit ready. I have a show. My band's playing tonight, so there you go.
All right, so we will wrap this one up. I'm trying to avoid comic book bears talk, but I can't help it.
Yes. It's going to leak, so that's fine.
As we go on with this show, I think we can manage maybe a weekly or a bi-weekly, something along those lines. We're certainly going to bring on friends of ours onto the show and talk music and talk movies and talk pop culture. And
Absolutely.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and especially with whatever outlet we have, whether it's Instagram or Tumblr page or Facebook. If you become a fan of the show, we are going to blow your minds with some video.
Yes.
And hopefully help you expand your musical horizons as we continually do to each other. So that's it. The first Good Time hour is
It was a good time.
Yeah. And certainly we'll have a theme song.
We need to learn the lyrics for the song that Donnie Marie closed with every night.
What was that?
Something about God bless you and
for our anniversary, my partner Robert and I, we had our anniversary yesterday. And
oh my gosh!
One of my gifts that I gave him was the Cary Grant Lost Episodes DVD.
I love that.
So when you're talking about farewells, I'm like in my head, I'm so glad we had this time together.
Beautiful. So yes, expect more. Expect your minds to be blown. Expect the unexpected.
You got a show to play, and you got a killer to avoid. And I am 3 hours ahead of you, and looks like I'm going to be watching a screener. So,
wonderful.
These things happen.
And it's also good to hear your voice too. We hang out whenever we're whenever I'm on your coast, but we do chat daily,
every day.
But it is good to hear your voice.
I can't imagine not talking to you, going more than 2 days and not talking to you. Even if it's the most insignificant shit like that Esther Roll song I found today.
That's going on the webpage.
Oh God, yeah. All right, folks. Until next time, I'm Billy D.
Ciao.
That's Tito, and we'll make you
and
shit.
That's Bill.
Take care.
Bye.
He looked so quiet.